Well, hi there. Welcome, everybody. Let's see. Guppy Simple is here and does not have a wrench. So we're going to take care of that little article of business right now. Bald and dangerous. Yeah, and you take it. I got another article of business too. That one, right. Get rid of the echo. Okay. We have a project, and I think it's one we're going to have a lot of fun with. I have had in mind to do a video on fish emotion. Do fish have feelings? What is the attitude of your fish? Are your fish happy? Can fish experience joy, sadness? What can they experience? Anyway, that's what I want to do. Now, my notion is to talk about ways in which we see fish behaving in a certain way, and then we're going to characterize it as an emotional condition, if you will. And then we're going to put that together with a video showing fish acting in those ways. That's the idea, anyway. Where we go with this, who knows? But I think it'll be fun. And I hope what we can do is get at some sense, some real sense of what it is that's happening in our fish tank. Now, here's the issue. It strikes me existential dread. That's very good, Steve. I think that's absolutely right. I think fish experience existential dread. You know what? As a matter of fact, I was driving home today and I had a curious experience. Well, a lot of my experience is curious, but this was I had a fly that flew up to my my driver's side window and was just kind of banging against it. So I rolled down the window and it went out. Rolled the window back up. Not 10 seconds later, there was another fly that flew up to the same window doing the same thing. I rolled the window down and it darted out. Now, I realize how ridiculous it is to make anything of that. Nevertheless, did the second fly see what happened to the first fly and follow course? And then it dawned on me an expression that I heard as a child or a young person. He or she would not hurt a fly. So, do flies have any form of consciousness? And as such, are they, what's the term? Are they living in mortal fear and existential dread of these humans who they seem to want to land on and tease? So, do fish have feelings? Well, we all know that fish experience hunger, and more to the point, they experience feeding frenzy. That probably is the singular habit that is taught to fish as a training exercise more than any other. And there are indeed those fish keepers whose sole experience of their fish is feeding them and watching them go after the food. I love to feed my fish. I got a video the other day on Discord, excuse me, from a person, a fish keeper, who had a very slimy tank. I mean, it was a lovely tank, lots of plants in it, but everything was covered in slime. It was a green slime, like an algae slime. Just awful. Worst I've ever seen. It dawned on me that that slime was actually a a cyano, an algae bacteria that was caused by excess nutrients in the tank. Now, how did excess nutrients get in this very lovely, heavily planted tank? Well, there really was only one way. So I said to the fish keeper, "You love to feed your fish." And he or she, don't know which, replied, "I sure do." Well, that's why you've got the problem, because the only thing you really appreciate about your fish is your ability to train them to eat on command. Now, I've put it the other way very often, that your fish teach you to feed them on command. And I suppose, in point of fact, it works both ways. Nonetheless, if your sole experience of your fish is watching them eat, Stephen Clark, thank you so much for the generous super chat. How kind of you. We got to jump off here. What's my method for treating fish fungus on a female betta fish as opposed to a male betta fish? Shall we? No, no, no. Salt bath. Here's the thing about fungus, and we'll bring this full circle. We're not going to lose track of where we're going here. Fungus follows bacteria. Fungus feeds on dead material. You don't find fungus growing on living tissue. You find bacteria growing on living tissue, killing it, and then fungus growing on that dead tissue. So if you see fungus, that means there is a bacterial infection. So you treat the bacterial infection. On the lip of a betta, I catch the fish in my net. I take out a little tube of antibiotic cream, the kind you put on a wound. Same stuff, antibiotic cream. And I dab it very gently on the infected part of the fish's mouth. Now, I'll do that, hold it out for a few seconds, put it back in the water. If it is kind of clumped on, it'll fall off, but enough remains on there to kill the bacteria. And that's really all you're trying to do at that point is kill the bacteria. It also will provide a certain amount of protection from invasion by additional bacteria. And very often that's enough to heal it. Just that simple act is enough to heal the fungus. You can also take the fish out if it's a very bad infection and put it in a hospital tank with salt in the water. How much salt? 1 tablespoon per 5 gallons, which can be increased if it doesn't do the job. There are some bacteria that are more so less susceptible to salt than others. The fish, however, will not be susceptible to to that level of salt. Okay, what is this? Oh, all right. Beverly Dre. Beverly and Alex. Yeah, I agree. Alex is here. Hi, Alex. Nice to see you. Okay, so here's where we're at. Beverly Dre, did I give you a wrench? I think I did. That was my intention. Yes, I did. All right. Who said this? ASMR said, I hear coolie loaches feel a little eel. Well, now that's good. That's really good. I was thinking about this, about the behaviors of different kinds of fish. And that's a perfect example of a fish that behaves in a certain way. It likes to hide, it gets down into things, and it'll dart here and there. It'll dart into something and dart back out. So it is sort of eel like in a way that very few other fish are. I mean, I guess loaches are that way. Uh, Even though it's oh yeah, Coley Loach. Well, that's funny. You said Coley Loach, and I was thinking clown loach, which is odd because they're totally different. Clown loaches are the same way though, but Coley loaches, yeah, they slither or appear to slither around, hiding, and they're very quick. They go zip, zip, zip. They're very hard to catch. Also, I have a I have a method of catching them. I need to explain this to you. If you ever need to catch coolie loaches out of your fish tank, don't use a net. Here's what you do: you get a half-inch siphon tube. You could use 3/4. Half-inch works well. Fill it with water. Hold your thumb on one end down below the level of the water, and with the other end, hold it in the water down close to the bottom. Now, use the end of it to kind of make the loach move around. If he's hiding behind some plants in the back, make him come out front. He will come out front right to the edge and sit there for maybe 2 or 3 seconds. Won't be long. Very quickly move the hose over above him, an inch or two above him, and release the flow of water with your thumb. Now you want to have a bucket down there. That's important. He will swim up into the current. He'll go right into the tube, slick as a whistle, works like a miracle. You ever need to catch a coolie loach? I just gave you the secret. That's a behavior, and it's a unique behavior. We can characterize that behavior as eel like. I thought that was very good. It's exactly what I'm looking for. Other kinds of behaviors, there's one that absolutely fascinates me, and that is the schooling behavior, particularly large schools of herring, for example, out in the wild in open water, where as one turns, they all turn. There is no individuality. They all swim together. They all cue off of each other. So they make a very serious attempt to not be different from anybody else in that swarm or in that school. They all act the same. The second one of them acts differently, a predator gets them just that quick. So it's vital that they all go in the same direction, that they all mimic each other. And so these fish have developed a lifestyle of being just like the guy next to him. Now, what's that called? What is that called? That's an interesting phenomenon. Going along to get along, maybe. I don't know. Funny stuff. Feeding behavior. There is, of course, mating behavior. And mating behavior varies considerably, fish to fish. There are some fish who simply quiver alongside each other. Many of them do, really. But that's when they do, they're releasing eggs and they may swim along doing that. Others will lay those eggs on a substrate. Panchax, Panchax, that's not the right word, Crevensis. Crevensis will go into a cave, flip upside down, and lay the eggs on the roof of the cave. They'll actually burrow under a flat rock and lay their eggs on the upside, on the inside top of that rock. So that's a slightly different breeding behavior. Others pick up the eggs and hold them in their mouths. Those are all different behaviors. Again, we can characterize those behaviors. What other kinds of behaviors do fish exhibit? Tannins that drop the pH. Yeah, tannins that drop the pH also cause bacteria to to become inert. In effect, the bacteria is not able to multiply and be and do its bacteria thing as polysporin. Yeah, so polysporin is one. There are a lot of different ones, but they all do the same thing. Thank you, Alex. Right. Oregon fir. I'm buying two 24-inch tall mother plant Amazon swords for my cichlids. Would this help with the water changes? You need quite a lot of plants to be able to help with water changes. One or two plants is not going to make much difference. Now, these are big plants and they go a long way. They'll do quite a lot. You didn't say what kind of tank or what size tank. These are big plants. Um, and they will spread out. They would become really quite large. I saw one once in Florida growing wild. It was in the Crystal River up in central Florida, and it was a single plant. Well, a single planting, I guess, because it had expanded to the point where that one plant had a base that was about 5 feet in diameter, about 5 feet wide, 5 feet around, an enormous plant, more than one plant, of course, because as they grow like that, they will send up new ones right alongside the other. There are two ways they do this: one by runners, and the other by cloning. And the clone is one just growing right off the crown, sending up a shoot right off the crown, growing a second plant, and they'll grow that way as well. And that's what this one was. It was not runners. It was this cloning effect with them just growing in a huge mass. But each one of those plants were like 3 foot tall. They were immense plants. Zebra Pleco Fans has posted a link to his YouTube. Very good. Carrie can't get into Discord. Says the invite is expired. You just need to get a new invite. Um, I'll post one here in a second. Let me give you a wrench, and let me get a I'll tell you what I'll do. I will post a link that does not expire. Here we go. Okay, that'll get you there. Carrie, yeah, I just did a rinse for you. I don't know. What is this? Is that Turkish? That's that funny script. How do I cope with a high bioload from predatory fish? Well, you want to control the bioload, number one. So don't treat your predatory fish as though their only interest in life is eating, because they do have many other interests. In fact, the less you feed them, the more other kinds of behavior you'll see. Obviously, aggressive behavior, but more predaceous behavior and more territorial kinds of behavior as well. Playing behavior. Fish do play. Playing is reputed to be a sign of intelligence. There are there's research being done now that demonstrates that fish have a level of intelligence heretofore undiscerned, if you will. So fish play. I remember a woman, an elderly woman, coming into my shop, very distraught. She had a 20-gallon tank, very nice tank, with live bearers in it. And she was very distraught. In fact, she was near in tears. And she had a little bag with her with a fish in it. It was a molly. It wasn't even a male, it was a female molly. And she was just broken up. So, well, what's the Molly looked fine, was not sick, was perfectly healthy. What's the problem? He fights with everybody. He's just a mean fish. Yeah. Well, what I did was put the fish in with some other mollies. And we watched it for a while. She said, see, look what he's doing. It was a female, by the way. She was playing. She wasn't hurting anything. She was darting after other fish, playing. So we had a little lesson then in how fish entertain themselves. And she felt so much better. And she did take him back home. Alex is saying big tank, big fish. Feed less, water changes, more surface area, omnivorous diet. But if you're keeping tiger fish, their bioload is huge. I did a video on this recently on how to keep big fish in a low maintenance tank. And the key to it is, of course, as Alex suggested, to feed less. To realize that that's not the sum and total of a fish's life. It doesn't live to eat. It lives to do a lot of other things. A fish in the wild, once it's got a meal, is not looking around for food. It's got a meal, it's got food in its belly, it's more interested in other things. It'll show curiosity, looking at things, poking around at them. It will show aggression. It will show fear, of course. It will lurk. It may rest. It may float in the sunlight, taking in the rays. It exhibits a lot of behaviors that have nothing whatever to do with eating. Think about your fish, watch your fish, observe them doing things that have nothing whatever to do with food. And you'll begin to realize that a fish's life is vastly more complex than perhaps you have given it credit for. Oh, it's Javanese script. Wow, very nice. Let's see. Who you gonna call? Bought 4 huge Echinodoris mother plants and my Vija. Ovidia cichlid. That's a wonderful fish. Probably one of the most beautiful of the American, Central American cichlids. The Vija or Vija is a pan-shaped fish, an oval-shaped fish with a bit of an elongated nose that is white with tiny black speckles all over it. Just really, really stunning. They get quite big too. They've got a foot, probably bigger. They can probably get to 2 foot. Howard Van Tassel, hello, hello. Nice to see you. Hello, Paul Cohen. Who are you gonna call? We need to give you a wrench. Add as moderator. Ricky Criddleball. The dinosaur made it in. Bravo. Let's see, what's Alex saying? Dim light? Even a lamp across the room will grow algae if your tank light is off. So if it's getting 15 hours of sunlight, oh, well, yeah. 2 ways to control that. The one is just load it up with plants. And then put some what are they called? Shears. Put some shears in the window to cut down on the amount of light coming in. Control feeding, deep substrate, lots of plants, and put some things in there that like to eat algae. There are lots and lots of fish and inverts that love algae. Don't treat algae as an enemy. It is not an enemy. It is, in point of fact, a friend. It's just another kind of plant, perhaps one that's not as desirable. But it is nonetheless a plant that is consuming nitrates, phosphates, other ostensible pollutants in the tank that are benefiting the balance and the health of the tank in a positive way. So look for ways to, every time somebody asks me, what do you do about old man's beard? My answer is fall in love with it. Because the minute you really like it, it's going to disappear because it will have done its job of consuming all of the excess nitrates and be left starving. Happens every time. It's kind of amazing. Dave is getting a bag of bugs. I just got a bag of bugs from Philip. Is Philip here? I talked to Philip earlier in the week about coming on with me, and I don't think he got his equipment together to be able to do it. So I did not hear from him, did not see him. Let's see. Ghostbusters. Yeah, I gave you a wrench. YouTube is slow to pick up on it. Paul Cohen, I got my plants and starter mix. Made my mud today. Plan on setting up my new tank tomorrow. The plants you sent are gorgeous. I hope they like once and sand. They take once and sand. They certainly should. These are stem plants. They're plants that derive nutrients from the leaves, from the stems, from the roots, really from the whole plant. So they're a wonderful starting plant. But the package deal now is for 15 different species. Now, I have a second package deal that has 4 species. No, yeah, 4 species of 5 each big leaf plants, very big, like 3-inch leaves, big leaves. I decided to separate them that way because the big leaf plants don't ship well with little leaf plants. So I'm doing packages for the same deal. You get 15 units Each unit is 5 plants. Each little bundle, you get 15 bundles. There are 5 plants in that bundle. So it's 5 15s is 75. And then you get one extra, makes it a total of 80 individual plants. So that's quite a lot to be able to plant. Now, when you plant them, this is important. Plant them together by species. If they're in a bunch of 5, don't separate them, leave them together. Plant them as a bunch. The reason is that the stems that are in the gravel release hormones that cause bacteria to produce certain minerals that the plant requires at that moment in its development. It requires different minerals for root growing, stem growing, leaf growing, flower growing, node growing, whatever other kind of growing it's doing. And it'll release these hormones into the sand, affecting the bacteria, causing the bacteria to break down compounds into the minerals that the plant requires. Now, obviously, if you've got a bunch of plants together, the same species, they're going to be able to have a greater impact. So you want to do it that way. You want to try to plant your plants in species groups. I never do that, as you can tell by my tank here. They're all mixed up. So I need to go back now. Reason that happened is because I'm stupid. I mean, the tank was cloudy when I did it. I couldn't see. I wasn't thinking. But I'm going to go back and try to clean that up some, get more plants in, and try to group them better. It also is simply more attractive. It looks nicer than all this hodgepodge kind of thing. Julia, love you too. Nice to have you here. Aquarium World. Molly's love algae. Lots of things do. Snails and crabs and shrimp do, of course. As do what other fish was I thinking about that likes algae? Oh, flagfish. They're a bit aggressive, but flagfish like algae. Orion Fur, do you have any methods on keeping plants with geophagus? Um, they geophagus don't dig deeply. They are a surface feeder. They're looking to pick up the worms and other macro inverts that are living right at the surface, maybe down quarter inch, half inch at the most. So they're not digging down in there. They're picking up mouthfuls right at the surface, swirling them around, separating with their pharyngeals the food, and then spitting the sand back out. So what they're really doing is they're well, they're not cleaning it, but they are finding food in that top thin layer of sand. They're really not going to uproot your plants. Now you want to plant them a little deeper. Get them down a good inch, inch and a half even, just to prevent something pulling them up. But they don't pull up plants, and they really don't uproot plants. Once you understand what they're doing, it's another fish behavior. A good example of a fish behavior. Fish eating. Here we go. Fish eating. There are any number of behaviors associated with fish eating. The most obtuse of which is fish eating uh, fish food, so-called fish food, dry, crumbly, or flaky, or whatever pellety food that you put in the tank. They eat that by scarfing it down. Just But fish have much more exotic feeding behaviors than that. And this is a perfect example talking about the I lost the contact. Lost it. Oh, geophagus, right. Talking about the ways geophagus eat. Here's a good one. Did you know, for example, that umbunas, that is the so called African cichlid, these are the cichlids from Lake Malawi. Others, like Elizabeth, Lake Elizabeth, is that right? Yeah, as well. These are fish that in the wild they feed on two different food populations. One is insects that fall into the lake. Insects swarm in huge, massive clouds and they swim out, they fly out over the water. And those are massive lakes. I don't know how wide they are. They're miles wide. They're hundreds of miles long and miles wide. So the bugs will fly out there. They get out to a point where they're getting weary, they're getting lower and lower, and finally they start hitting the water, and the fish are there waiting for them. They've been following them all this time, and they just start feeding on them. That's one way. The other thing that the umbunas eat is based on their dentition, on their teeth. Every species of umbuna has unique dentition. The teeth are shaped differently, and they're shaped differently in order to be able to scrape different kinds or different thicknesses of algae from rocks. So, the umbuna is a plant eater primarily. That is its major food. We never feed them algae. We never feed them lettuce. We never feed them the very foods that they eat in their native environment. We never, ever allow algae to grow on the rocks. But if we did, we would be providing a natural environment. Combine that with some bug bites or Dropsilia, wingless fruit flies, even crickets, and they're in heaven. So feeding behavior is unique as well. There's two different feeding behaviors we're looking at right there. Being able to observe fish eating naturally is such a vital part and such a missing part of fish keeping that it really borders on the outrageous that we're not focused on trying to ensure that our fish are receiving a kind of food that they get in the wild in nature. Bettas are a perfect example. Now, many of us do feed bettas live food. The primary food of bettas in the wild is, well, it's two things. It's mosquito larvae and it's Daphne. Also, red wigglers, which is the damselfly, is it? The damselfly larvae? It's a tiny red, looks like a worm. Bettas eat live food. That's their natural food. And as I say, there are more people who are aware of that and trying to accommodate that because it does allow the fish to function in a way that's totally normal. And I think that's really what we want to try to get at. That's the purpose of this exercise of looking at fish's behavior to try to determine what it is that's normal, to look for normal behavior, to look for the fish acting in ways that are casual, that are not forced in any way. The last video I did showed a picture of, I think it is an Oscar. laying down, well, sitting down, just kind of parking on a rock in a fairly dark tank. And if a fish ever looked sad, that fish looked sad. I mean, you looked at that and you just wanted to have your heart skip a beat. That fish was very, very unhappy. Now, what would make a fish unhappy? Well, bad water conditions certainly. Utter boredom certainly would. You know, one of the things that I have been thinking about lately, um, there's some big fish keepers who are convinced that their fish cannot be kept in tanks that have plants because they will rip them up. It strikes me that if that is true, and the fish are not ripping them up because they're eating them, then the fish have become insane. They've become hostile in their environment. They have become bullies or worse. They become little mobsters that are just going to tear things up, whatever happens, because they are so bored that they've lost the ability to function in a way that is healthy minded, if you will. So there's another aspect. How can we create an environment in which our fish are healthy minded, in which they are at peace, they're satisfied, they're happy where they are, they enjoy their environment, and they act in ways that demonstrate that, as opposed to being on the lookout for something to get in trouble with, being huffy and angry all the time, with a get me out of here attitude. I mean, think about it. We really do that. We have to pay attention to things like this. If we're going to keep these animals, we need to make some effort to understand them, right? Let's see what else we got here. Phillips, oh, Philip is here. Good. Phillips at Fishworks. Um, Thanks for the support and continued variety of content. Philip, make sure you post your link. Um, Phillips Fishworks is selling. I just got, I got a bunch of it from him. Um, Here's one package with these little. He calls them Daphne balls, I guess. They're seed pod. I collect them locally here and have them in all of um the wet leaf bundles that I sell, most of them anyway, and the dry leaf bundles for that matter. But I got white worm culture, which I'm real excited about. I got micro worm culture from them, and then several bags of macro fauna. Um, so post your link and do get over there and take a look. It's got some very cool stuff. We're talking about feeding natural foods. That's exactly what what Phillips is selling. Melt. Love my father fish inspired tank. 10-gallon planted and food web. Have guppies that play and autosynclists that eat the algae. Setting up a 55 next. Love Alex's channel too. Yeah, Alex, this is the Three Musketeers. Alex, we need to get together with Lucas and do a three-way. We probably ought to do a three-way routinely, like once a month or so. That would be great fun. I think he probably would be up for it. Don't want to do anything, too frequently, but a once in a while kind of thing would be neat. I just saw Lee Meredith, Lee Wilcox. I'm sorry, I knew Lee Meredith. Lee Wilcox, protein and or oil slick at JTTR Bonsai. Got some paper kitchen towel, lift it off, don't over time. Yeah, do it over time. Remove the slick. That's one of the easiest ways to get it. It's just paper towel, a paper kitchen towel. If you have an oil slick, now usually it's not an oil slick, it's an algae slick. If you see a slick on the surface, it almost inevitably is algae. Unless, of course, you've been feeding some kind of animal fat like hamburger or hot dog. Don't ever do that. Fish cannot digest mammal fat. They can digest fish fat, chicken fat. They cannot digest mammal fat, pig fat, beef fat, so forth. So don't feed that. I have fed rats to arowanas, having said that. Oh, well. Let's see. Press alpha. Speaking of fish having feelings, is it wrong? Oh dear, here we go. Is it wrong to eat sushi at my dinner table directly in front of the home aquarium? I'll tell you what, Press Alpha. Put a piece of the sushi fish, not the rice. Well, you could do the rice. Put a piece of the sushi fish in the tank and see what happens. The very best food for fish, dare I say it, is fish. Fish will eat a dead fish. Everybody in the tank, doesn't matter who they are, what they are, if a fish dies, it is fair game for 100% of the population. Everybody will go after it. So, no, not at all. You should not be uncomfortable eating sushi in front of your fish. They would do it if they could. And given the opportunity, they will. So you could make them a little jealous, but you're not going to hurt their feelings. Scud balls. Thank you. Yes, scud balls. Gollymon. Gollymon, what are you on about? We had that term come up in Discord, and we had a bot that blocked vulgarity or innuendos, and it blocked menage a trois. It's menage a trois, isn't it? Remember my French. No fat in beef heart. Well, in point of fact, 3G, there is substantial fat in beef heart, but it is primarily on the surface of the heart and can be taken off. It's a bit of a chore to do it. I have cleaned many a beef heart. In fact, when I was feeding beef heart, which I did extensively for years, I would have the butcher prepare the heart for me. I would have him take all of the gristle and all of the fat off the heart, which usually represented a quarter to a third of the weight of the heart, and then double to triple grind the heart to make it a paste. I found that worked brilliantly. I haven't fed beef heart in forever. But you're right. If it's just the heart and all the fat has been removed, there is no fat in the heart. There is gristle some in the heart, but the heart can be covered in fat. It's not good for the heart, but it's there. Let's see. Mariposa, would your substrate be safe for axolotls? Absolutely. Can't see myself following one with a turkey baster to pick up its poop. Don't need to. It will disintegrate into the sand. It's perfect. The deep substrate sand bed is a perfect base for axolotls. In point of fact, it's what they live on in nature. They live in caves, but in rivers and caves. And those rivers, the bottom of those rivers is deep with sand. Let's see. Cushmaran. Cushman, I'm sorry. A set up a 40 plastic tote with creeping Jenny going great. Yeah, it's ideal. And he's got tiger and rosy orbs in it. Very nice. You should be getting babies in there. Goki Duke. Goki Duke. Also getting a wrench. Let's see what Lead says. I feed my cats raw beef heart. They love it. They growl like lions as they eat it. They take a chunk and separate from each other and go to town. I'm feeding cats here. I have wild cats. This town I'm living in is overrun with wild cats. So everybody who cares about the birds feeds the cats to keep them well fed enough they don't destroy the bird population. So I'm feeding cats. I'm up to 10. Um, and I feed them in one bowl. I put one bowl of food out there full, and they will feed one at a time. One will eat, usually the dominant one, and then when it's finished, the others that are sitting right alongside the bowl waiting for that one to be finished will be next up. Rarely is there any squabbling about it. They take turns. They're very gentlemanly about their eating habits. Interesting stuff. Akuna Matata has a breeding group of geos, and he says they're diggers. They're probably creating what are they called? What's the term? They're creating a concave nest for the eggs and the young babies to stay in until they're free swimming. If you just make that deeper, they're not going to go down to the bottom. They'll go down 2 or 3 inches. Um, and if it's going to be worse than that, you can build the tank in such a way as to prevent that from happening by capping the dirt with shade cloth or something. But my experience is they don't go down very deep. Howard says earthworms for the win. Got to agree. Earthworms are probably the very best, other than fish, food you can feed. Kenneth D is here. Hello, Kenny. Nice to see you. Emerald says, Dave, are you sure it's not an apple snail? Well, I know what this is in response to. I breed mysteries. They don't ever eat my live plants. They'll munch algae off the anubias leaves. They will eat dead leaves and they will eat dying leaves. But you're right, Emerald. They will not eat green leaves. If you have a snail that's eating leaves, it is likely some form of apple snail, or what's that other one called? Looks like a giant ram's horn. Kip, kip, kipsy, sipsy, something like that. It'll come to me. They're dreadful. They are awful with plants. That and the apple snail. Well, we'll eat a plant down to the root and then eat the root. I mean, they're just intolerable snails. But mystery snails do not know. I know a lot of people are convinced they do. But I believe what they're seeing is that the snail is eating dead or dying leaves. They don't kill the plant, but if all plants lose leaves, and when they do, it becomes food. It's nourishment. That's how 90% of the stuff in nature lives on other things that die. In fact, 100%. 100% of the things that live depend on things that they either can kill or are dead in order to be able to survive. Let's see. Uh, oh, Alex got a cat, a black fluffy stray. Finally pettable. Yeah. Oh, a year of feral behavior. Were you doing well at that? I had a feral Persian that I got as a half grown kitten. And it was never all that friendly and insisted on being outside. I bred it I took it to a cattery and had it bred with what is the big cat called? I don't remember. Anyway, Tom was born of that mating. And I had Tom for almost 15 years. He finally died of terminal arthritis. He lost the ability to move his back legs at all and just had to drag himself around. It was an intolerable life for him. Cat pee cycle tank. Well, you can if you want to. I think it's not unheard of, you see, cat pee. In point of fact, and some of you have heard me say this, when we first started doing saltwater tanks, it's back in the 50s. We did two things. We threw a penny in the tank to kill the bacteria, which also in time killed the fish. And we peed in the tank, or at least poured some urine in the tank to get the nitrite cycle kicked off, the ammonia cycle. I don't do any of that anymore. No, nothing, not even like it. Uh, 20. 20. Wow, Lee. As a cat that's 20, that's amazing. Emerald W. Emerald, welcome. Emerald has become a member of the YouTube channel, which gives Emerald benefits in YouTube as well as in Discord. And once we work out how to do it, I finally have someone, Naresh. Some of you know Naresh. Naresh is accepting responsibility for the Patreon channel. So I'm hoping that finally, after these many years, we're going to be able to do something nice with the Patreon channel. Are snail eggs good for fish? Michael Bernhardt says, generally speaking, the fish will not eat them because they are either out of the water, like a mystery snail will lay what looks like a mud dauber's nest above the water level, or they will be encapsulated in an inedible slime mass. The same with salamanders and frogs laying their eggs in slime masses. They do that not just to protect the eggs from infection and bacteria, but because fish and other inverts don't like to eat it, which seems peculiar to me because it's organic material. It must have something bitter or noxious in it to prevent them from eating it because they'll eat darn near anything else. Research paper is still on track for June. It's probably going to be July, but we are on track. And the first unit will be on leaves, all of the different kinds of leaves. And we will have a recommended list with the elements that they provide, the rate of disintegration, the volume to be able to use, and we're not going to get into the food web as such at that stage because that's going to be down the road. We've got 3 units. The first is leaves. The second unit we're going to work on is the substrate, getting into the chemistry and the biology of the substrate. And that's really critical because I'm way out on a limb with a lot of the things I use in the substrate as supplements. So we're going to be looking at all of those things and determining their relative value. Now, we do this not by doing direct research. JTTR Bonsai is made a $10 super chat. Thank you very much. Yes, right there. Thank you very much. Super sticker. I don't know whether you've noticed, but yes, I did. I did get a haircut. I went to a barber this week and I said, clean me up. And darn if he didn't. And I don't look like myself at all. In fact, I'm down at a point where I'm going to be trimming the beard even more. I've become active in a local church and I've been asked to preach. So I'm going to be doing that. On my first sermon will be on June the 11th. I'm going to try to get it on live stream that Saturday morning. I don't know if I'll be able to. We'll try. But that may mean I'll be moving in the ministry. So we'll see how all that pans out. My 3 dead snails won't be eating anything, says Harry. Well, no, but everything will eat them. Who's this? Bin Flipper. Add as moderator. Standard moderator. Acuna is saying, speaking of copper, I remember when there were tons of stores in New Jersey in the early 90s, and someone was going around squirting copper in the reef systems. A vicious kind of competition. Yeah, it's a deadly toxin. Nasty stuff. 130 watching. That ain't bad. 80 likes. Yeah, let's get the likes up, guys. You're going to kill my algorithm. I have made a determination more. I've alienated some people who had an absolute heart for helping me get to a very big number. Now it's coming along. I mean, I'm coming up. Behind Alex here, and I'm gonna catch him. By God, I think in 2 to 3 weeks, I think I'm gonna catch Alex unless he picks up or I slow down. But they were very anxious to see me get to 50 or 100,000, but at a cost of surrendering control of the channel. And I just was not willing to do that. And they gave up. Poor souls. I mean, they were kind and helpful and supportive, and I just couldn't go along with it. My problem, not theirs. A Newport, yeah, right. Well, give me a week or two because I think the beard is going to go. I've had the beard for almost 20 years. Been a long time. I've had long hair too. I had a video I was watching recently with a beard down to here and hair just as long. So I've had a lot of hair. while I was at the shop. So I've got a lot of videos of that, which is kind of nice. But I think I'm going in the other direction. It was not my intention to do so. Like I said, I walked into a barber and I said, "Clean me up." I don't know whatever made me do that, but I did it. I look thinner too. I wish I were. I'm not at all. NAP Aquatics. Fire ant tetra died yesterday. What? That's cute. I watched the others surround it, and it looked like they were mourning. Yeah, I know what you mean, and I think there's something to that. I think when a fish is in trouble and dying, very often other fish in the same species will. It seems like they're trying to encourage it. I guess it depends on the nature of its condition, because in some cases it would not be something that they ought to be near. But just as often, if it's like an injury, there seems to be some sympathetic response until it dies. And once it dies, it's food. Anything that dies is food. How many natural ponds are in Casa Grande, Arizona? Bric-a-brac. Somebody will have an answer to that. I have no doubt at all. Let's see. Golly, man, you're going to be gone. You can be gone. How did Gollymon get to be a moderator anyway? There, you've lost your moderator, and I'm gonna I look clean cut. Well, that was the idea. A granddad as moderator. Cyan Molf. Yeah, you've been sitting, Alex. They said you'll pass me easily. You've been sitting at low 40s for a while now. Um, I'm doing about 250 subscribers a day. I do almost 2,000 a week, and that's down from what it was a couple of months ago. Lee says I can give you 10 lights. I have that many channels. That's amazing. That's amazing. Brown pressure treated wood is copper, has copper in it. That's interesting. Didn't know that. John says each one of your videos are inspiring and helpful. Well, thank you, John. That's very kind. Very kind. What we need to do, Alex, is we both need to catch up to Lucas. And then we can really have some parties. That would be grand fun, wouldn't it? Thank you, Alana. I appreciate you. Kicking Gollymon in the pants there. I've taken away his wrench. It hasn't disappeared yet. Loaves and fishes. Let's give you a wrench. Makes you a member of the shoal, the Fatherfish Shoal. Little Lee, the annoying one. Oh, that's cute. I like that. Add as moderator. a moderator, and Sue. Let's see, Spinster Sister just did a $3 donation right there. Are catappa leaves good for my guppies and swords? Absolutely. Let me do a little bit on leaves. Catappa leaves they're like an oak leaf. They're a very heavy, thick leaf. They take a long time to break down. Now there are other leaves like maple leaves that break down very quickly. So you need a mix of these different kinds of leaves, and that's what this first chapter of the book or first unit of the book is going to describe is what the disintegration rate is and what kinds of leaves to use in conjunction with other leaves in order to be able to have a fully developed food web. In other words, you want some things that can be broken down quickly, others that'll last longer, and they provide different nutrients. So you need them all. Um, the list that we're going to provide will be of trees that are common in every um what's the climb we're in called, every tropical, subtropical, what's the next one, what's the one we're in, temperate, every temperate zone. Every temperate zone will have the leaves that we're going to recommend. So you will be able to find those leaves native. Dave says if Alex can find something, it most likely doesn't exist. Well, that's likely true. He says, I've grown the same rate for 2 years. It seems like you did a burst, same reason as you. I could make more sensational stuff, drama, but didn't want to play those games. I'll be nerdy and slow growing. Yeah, that's kind of what happened to me. I mean, I got into the title and thumbnail game and doing the SEO stuff. The SEO irritates me. The thumbnail is kind of fun. I'd always sort of done that. I've always tried to, but never really looked at the science of it. And we just hit a couple that clicked. The title on the um, cleaning your tank video, that is in excess. It's been out 7 weeks, I think. it's hit It hit 400,000 views last week. It grows at the rate of 5 to 6,000 views a day. It's a darndest thing. Never seen anything like that. It just keeps going and going and going. It's like, the ever ready battery or something. And it has a title that I really did not like and did not want. But I said to the guy who was insisting on it, okay, do it. And I just swallowed it. And darned if he wasn't right. It is an explosion. It's absolutely amazing. That one video is probably responsible for much of the growth of the channel over the last month or two. It's kept the numbers up. I'm doing about 25,000 views a day. And that's six just for that video, plus whatever carryover there is, which is another couple anyway. So that's a third of the daily videos right there with that one video. Just amazing. Glory to God, says Arian. Amen to that. Greg Williams. Gonna give Greg a wrench and see what he's got to say for himself. Found your channel last month, which I'd known you 40 years ago. I learned more in 4 weeks than 40 years. But sand to top gravel in my 10-gallon fish already looking happier, looking for leaves for the bottom. Yeah, what you'll notice is the fish are going to behave differently. They're going to behave in ways that are more that are normal, that are just where they're demonstrating healthy behavior. Hello, Mr. Amili, nice to see you. Kraus has got a $5 super chat here somewhere. There it is, right there. Thank you, Kraus. The tannins break down with no water change. I don't want to keep making the water darker infinitely and block light. It's a really good question. There are certain elements in tannins that are organic and that are nutritional, but it's not a substantial amount of the tannin. So you must treat tannin essentially as a dye, and it's a curious thing. I mean, I've seen tannins dissipate. I've seen them go away, but only if what put them in the tank to begin with was no longer there. If you have a piece of soft wood, for example, that's breaking down and creating tannins, and you leave that in there, it's going to get darker and darker. Now, it will not get so dark that light cannot penetrate it. And in point of fact, if you've got um, my mind just drew a blank, spotlights, they will be able to penetrate through to the bottom, and they won't be hindered by that. But it will make it darker, no question about it. Uh, at that point, you need to either take the culprit out, and or do some water changes. Now, let me talk about water changes a little bit because there's a little known fact that goes um, really unknown and unheralded. If you're taking water out of your tank and replacing it with new water, you do not need to throw that old water away. You can put it in a container. You can have an air stone in it or not, doesn't matter. Let it sit. It will precipitate. Whatever is in there will precipitate, particularly if you've got a couple of inches of sand in the bottom. All of that will precipitate into it. If you can put a carbon block filter in there, that will reduce the ostensible pollutants to the point where that water will be perfectly fine to be able to be used again. Thank you, Nick Lampert, very much. And Greg Williams, $3. Thank you, both of you guys. Let me jump back and forth between you here. There's Greg, there's Nick. There's Greg, there's Nick. There's Greg. Who else is here? Nobody yet. Oh, yeah, this is good. There it is. Next got another 2.99. Look at that. Now we got him going. Nick, there's Greg. There's Nick. Rams. Where was that? The interesting. Oh, Goki Duke is saying, I think my male ram suspects the missus wants to eat the eggs. He's guarding them big time. Very often, it is a good idea. I like to put rams in tanks by the pair. Just give a pair of rams a dedicated tank. Now, the reason is they will spawn much more readily, and they will raise the eggs, hatch the eggs out much more readily, and they will nurture those babies until they are up and swimming, and then the babies will disappear, and a week later there'll be new eggs. So what I have learned, and I've got a video on this on breeding rams, is once the babies are up off the bottom and free swimming, at that point they must be fed. You need food for them. Microworm culture is perfect. I think um, brine shrimp, baby brine, is slightly too big for them, but microworm is perfect for about the first week. But take the parents out, leave the babies in there. They also will be able to feed on whatever microfauna is in the tank. Macrofauna will be too big, but the paramecium and other small amoeba-like creatures, they will thrive on. If you leave the parents in one day after they have become free swimming, they will disappear. Now, I have heard there there have been people with older pairs that have been able to rear their babies right through. I have never had an older pair spawn. They go through a cycle, and the first cycle lasts about a month, where they'll spawn essentially every week. They spawn, well, every 2 weeks. They'll spawn, the babies will hatch in about 2 days. They'll be up and swimming in 5 to 6 days, and then a week later they spawn again. It could be sooner than that. It's been a while since I've done it. So they'll spawn 2 to 3 times a month. Do it for a month, 2 months tops, and then stop. Then they have to recycle. Well, I've never gotten any through the recycling, but I would guess if you do, there's a good chance that they'll be able to carry a little further along. Now there was a comment here. Something of emeralds talking about a funky smell. I don't know what that is. Tannins, maybe. Oh, Diana said 8 more likes. We'll have the same people and likes. I should be looking at this number. Let's see where it is. We're at 139 watching, 138. Hit it, hit it, hit it, hit it. Oh, I can hit it. 139 there. Oh, and 40. Very good. 42. 142, 145. Let's see. Next 299, we got that. When a fish, oh, here we go. Ryan, good question. When a fish shop says that a fish is seasonally imported, does that go by region? And what season do Indian Asian fish get imported? What it means is that those fish are typically are caught wild, and they are only available in certain seasons. um, for the Indian Asian, they are below the equator, and so the seasons are reversed. They're going to be available in the fall. Their fall, which will be our spring. A random guy. Let's give you a wrench and check your question here, random guy. You're saying, can you put some light on the matter that collecting duckweed from a nearby lake and adding it to a fish tank is safe and beneficial? Sure. Um, Collecting duckweed from a nearby lake and adding it to a fish tank is safe and beneficial. How's that? And not only duckweed, but the muck from the bottom of the lake, the sand from the beach and the bottom of the lake, the rocks, especially from the lake, which contain vast amounts of microfauna and a material, the name of which I've forgotten. Maybe Alex will remember, which is a biological growth on that rock that builds up over a period of many years that is remarkably beneficial in your tank. Drifter's Workshop says, adding moderator, getting back to into fish after about 20 years, amazed how much the hobby has changed. One of the more annoying changes is that aquarium antibiotics are banned. The old way still work. Do you know I have 1 to 5 pound containers of all of the antibiotics. Now I can get the antibiotics through the pet industry. They are still available. A lot of shops won't carry them, but they can get them if they want them. They are available. You need to be a bona fide pet vet, I guess. Not certified, but a pet husbandryman that has a pet business. Erie says, it's mad, everything else all good. All the fish happy, plants reaching for the stars, suspecting the worst at this point. I know it's hard to get over paranoia, isn't it? That's okay. You will heal. You will heal. It's the nature of the system is to create healing. Once you once you learn to trust nature implicitly, you are in that moment healed of all of the conditions that being in conflict with nature bring on. Now, there's a statement, isn't it? But it's true. Once you are no longer in conflict with the natural world, you are no longer taking into yourself the conflicts that prevent the natural world from keeping you healthy and happy. It is the nature of nature to be healthy. Death comes at the end, sickness comes at the end, terminal sickness, obviously. It is not the commonplace. It is not the normative. We don't see everything sick and dying around us. We see everything alive and thriving. There is death, to be sure. Without it, there would be no life. We are, after all, creatures. And as such, we have a short, relatively, lifespan. But while our life is spanning, it need not be miserable. It need not be broken. Clearly, there are those who are beset with terrible troubles. Terrible troubles. Sicknesses that seem to have no source and no cure. I pray for them, as should we all. As should you pray for yourself if that is your condition. But it is not the sum and total of your condition. It is a cross you bear as we all bear our crosses. Nevertheless, it is not the meaning of your life. It is not the purpose of your life to suffer, to be broken, to be miserable, to be negative, to be hostile, to be in conflict. That is not the nature of your life. And if it is, you need to change it. And you change it by setting up one of these little fish tanks and parking yourself in front of it and staring at it 4 to 6 to 8 hours a day for as long as it takes for you to get over yourself. Oh, I know the pet thing in Florida. They they did they did beat the commissioners into submission, at least momentarily. I don't think it'll last. By the way, um, little Rubio has decided to be a little tin god again, and he's come back with his Lacey Act amendment and refiled it. I hope this time we can beat the little prince into submission and demonstrate to him what a complete and utter twit he genuinely is. He certainly needs to have somebody come up against him who can beat the pants off of him and get him out of office. He does not deserve the vaunted position he is in. He thinks by banning all animals is going to vaunt him into the presidency. That's what his staff has been telling him. And he believes it. Fool that he is. In the meantime, he causes untold grief, anxiety, fear, and dread. The man needs to be stopped, as do a few others of his ilk. Fungus says, my next experiment, a betta tank without plants and no water changes. Do I think it'll work? Well, yeah, you can do it. There's no point to it. I mean, there's no point to having no plants. There are too many plants that look really nice with bettas that bettas enjoy and that do well. Um, Try a Nubius. You can attach it to hardscape, and it's wonderful. It's attractive. It grows slowly. It's an easy plant to keep. It'll be ideal. Dooby doo. Kraus is talking about his dormant snails. Yeah, temperature, that's true. Fish and other aquatic animals relate to temperature. They relate to water conditioners, certainly. Water conditioners too, I guess. Ooh. Most meds are banned in Canada. A lot of things are banned in Canada. Huh. Oh yeah, Emerald says this is it. Oh boy, here we go. Here's a recipe for a shock. He says, Erie. Well, you can definitely, Erie's having trouble with his snails. They're just kind of laying there. So Emerald's giving him advice on how he can determine what's going on. He says, you can definitely try and gently pull the operculum, the little trapdoor, which is a hard shell kind of thing, back. And if there's resistance, then they're still alive. That's true. And if there's no resistance, the smell will knock you on your butt. And you will not want to breathe for a week. Oh dear. They're not going to get it, Dave. It's not going to go through. Um, and here's the thing about exotic species. Yeah, there are a lot of exotic species in Florida. There are only two or three that FWC has determined, that is, the guys in the field, the scientists who are doing the work. There are only a few that they have determined are actually supplanting other animals. The Cuban tree frog is one that has supplanted the green tree frog. The Cuban anole is another one, has supplanted the green anole. Among fish, there's really only one that has supplanted other fish, and it has not supplanted a species. Rather, it has taken over territories, and that is the jewel fish, which is an African fish, curiously, not a South American one. A beautiful fish, bright red with silver spots, gets 3 to 4 inches, rough customer, really a tough, hard, aggressive, fighting, killing fish. And it pretty well beats up on everything below its size in its territory. So they're a bit of a scourge. But most of the fish, like the Oscars, for example, are living right alongside bass, um, what are they called? The mudfish, they call brains gone, gar. They're living right alongside other native fish and are not threatening them. So simply being invasive is not in and of itself a problem. That animal may be filling a niche that was otherwise not filled, and not be displacing anything at all. And that's more commonly the case. The other thing that's vastly more common is a species escaping into the wild and not being able to establish a breeding colony for a whole variety of reasons. It's in point of fact very rare and very uncommon for escaped species to be able to establish effective breeding colonies. If it's simply in one place, it virtually is not going to happen. It needs to be released in a variety of environments in order for it to really be established. So the problem is not nearly as bad as those who would like to control it to go on. Superglue is sterile, can be used to stitch wounds. Gorilla glue is chemical and not nice. Very good, Lee. Excellent. Superglue can be used in water. It hardens instantly in water and will bind. It's used to attach coral to base rock, for example. Yeah, humans are invasive and destructive. Well, there you go, lumpy dog. It that when you really begin to understand that, then you begin to understand what this is all about. Because the reality is that all of life is potentially, if not in fact, invasive. If it is a growing, thriving population, whatever it is, it's not sticking to its territory. It's pushing at the limits of its territory. It is seeking to invade other territories. That is, in point of fact, the nature of life. And to try to somehow restrict that is, again, a fool's errand and is an attitude and a conviction that is antithetical to the nature of nature. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't try to keep certain things like kudu out of the environment, though that's a bit of a lost cause because we brought it in such large quantities as to make it a scourge. More often than not, the problems that are created, that where there are substantial and dangerous and violent invasives are caused by us. We do it, and we do it more or less deliberately. And we don't do it as hobbyists releasing guppies. We do it as governments, as agencies, as institutions, as vast numbers of people doing what we think is the right and good thing to do that turns out to be the wrong and bad thing to do. So, how do you control that exactly? Not sure there's a good answer to that. Oscars are mean in tanks. Yeah, that's what I was talking about before, Ariana. Uh, they become insane. They're fish like Oscars. Now, if you handle your Oscar quite a lot, have your hand in the tank, or petting it when it's young, handling it, it will adapt to that behavior. But if you simply leave it there in a bare tank, it's going to get really angry and really hostile. It's not going to be a happy little fish at all. And as it gets bigger, it'll become rather aggressive toward you or anything else that comes near it because it's frankly pissed off. So, my rule today is don't piss off your fish. You won't be happy. And of course, they won't either. Do. They get eaten quickly. They do indeed. They really do. Any invasive that gets out is it's food. Uh, uh, there, there are no populations of angels. There are ponds. We know they will live in the wild. They will, because they're grown outdoors in big ponds year round. So we know they can live in Florida. They don't, because they are food for everything. Neons are another one, food for everything. Tetras, you don't find tetras. There may be a random small population discovered somewhere, but it's not a thriving population. It exists in a tiny little biotype that's highly protected, where it's able to thrive for a minute until something gets in there and gobbles it up. Lee is riding a BMX at 54, Pike minnows. Yeah, well, I don't think they get that big, do they? Pike minnows. What's that called? What is that? The live bear. The live bear pike minnow. That name always escapes me. It's not a native. It's found in the Everglades. There also is a pike. Here's a good example. It's a population of them in up north of Bradenton, where farmers release them over an extended period of time, and they have established in some fairly substantial territories. Now, they're not a little guppy; they're a much bigger fish. I've never seen them over 7 or 8 inches, but they're predators. They're a live bear predator that will feed on any small fish. What in the world are they called? They call them pike minnows. It's a live bear. Bolana sucks. Thank you. See on math. Appreciate it. Bellazanas. Bolana sucks. Bellazanas. Exactly. Uh, Dave says angels can be found in waterways where those waterways are all connected. Not many right now, but it's happening. Yeah, it can happen as long as there's no effective predation. But the predation is going to prevent them from being able to expand. Even as a larger fish, they can't get big enough to be safe because the bass will eat them. And they can't swim fast enough to get out of the way. So they are uh, uh, a hopeless predatable food. Stickleback and minnows, Lee. Oh my! I want to get stickleback so bad. I'm really anxious to get them. They are brackish here in this part of Maryland, and I know where I can get them. I think I'm hoping to get out there this summer to be able to do some. Ariana says her husband was doing that, her friend wasn't. Oh, talking about the Oscar attacking her. Oh dear, Father Fisher, president. I don't want the job. I have tiger limia that'll eat from my hand. So will my weather loach. Novi would rather eat my hand. Yeah, there is that. Novi is another big, beautiful fish. These Central American fish are astounding. They're just amazing fish. And they get quite large. They can get up to 2 foot. They can get really big. Three spine sticklebacks. Oh, dear. I would love it, Alex. I would love to get three spine sticklebacks. Let me send you some money for shipping, please. That would be a delight. Um, I've got a tank I can put them in too. In fact, they'd be good in here. Put them right there. Give me the water parameters for that, and I'll pay for the shipping. I'll buy the fish from you. You need to make a little money on them, and I am making a little money these days. Not a lot, mind you, but I am making some. Yo, Sully 79. Used to catch them as a child in the old brooks and rivers. Where are you, Yo Sully? Add as moderator. Alex, yours are freshwater, correct? Or are they brackish? Three spine in your pond. Oh, freshwater, right. Wonderful, wonderful. That would thrill me no end. I've been wanting sticklebacks. I was able to get some that came in with bait fish from Arkansas, from the mountains of Arkansas. And I couldn't keep them alive in Florida because they were cold water. And I couldn't keep the water cold enough for them. So I couldn't keep them going. So if these guys will live in, I can keep them outside here. If they can live in 70-degree water, I can do it. I have bought a greenhouse, 30 by 10 by 6.5 tall, that I'm going to have a nephew of mine help me install, which will have all of my vats in it. So I'm real excited about that. I have a neighbor down the street who's a gardener who put one in, $200 from Amazon with free shipping, no less. And it's big. It's 30 feet long, 10 feet wide, and about 6 feet, 6.5 feet tall. I've been in it. They're really nice. So I'm very excited about that. That'll be up. It'll probably take me a month to get it up, but it doesn't matter so long as it's up by the fall. Fat Lord says, I love how he spreads misinformation, just like Kev said. Right. Well, Kev knows, doesn't he? Kev's a smart man. He's learned how to make money from the big guys. Right. I don't know if I ought to give you a wrench for that or not, Fat Lord. I guess I will. Just because I'm a nice guy. Right. Bumblesbee. I like feeder guppies. Where is that? I lost it. And they're cheap. I know I'm weird. I do too. They're wonderful fish. Absolutely are. I don't have a guppy in the house. All right, let's get the blank out of there. Eat live food, says Alex. Eat live food. Right. Fat Lord, shame on you. Trying to start trouble here. Gullyman says, I eat guppies and mollies and platies and snails when Lee's gone noon at night. Don't tell him. I'm going to tell him, Gullyman. I'm going to tell him. Because Lee loves his fish. And you don't love it. You love to eat them. Gullyman. Gullyman. That's Smeagol. Smeagol. Joe Black, I just rescaped a 60p and now finish the day with you. Best Sunday ever. Fat Lord says, no way. You're just trolling or are you being truthful? You just trolling or are you being truthful? Well, Fat Lord, you're going to have to listen long enough to find out. I ain't going to tell you because you won't believe me, whatever I say. And you're not going to believe anybody else either. So you just hang in there. You can shoot whatever arrows you want. I don't care. Doesn't matter. And in a month, you tell me. In a month, you'll know. Unless you just go away, which is more likely. But if you're serious, hang in there and find out. Find out for yourself. Don't believe what somebody else tells you. Find out for yourself. Determine how to figure out what's true in your own mind, not based on somebody else's thoughts and ideas, based on your own, based on thinking, rational thought. A rare commodity these days, and it genuinely is. Most people do not think, they simply react based on what somebody else who they have determined to respect has said. Don't be that way. Don't believe what other people say simply because they say it, myself included. Don't believe a word I say until you test it. But test it not against what somebody else says, test it against yourself. You be the arbiter of what is true. You understand something about the nature of reality. Figure some things out for yourself, and then you will become an intelligent human being capable of rational thought and of determining what is true and what is not true. Now, there's a discipline, isn't there? Two wild Oscars. Want to know if I'm making everyone laugh. I try to have a sense of humor. I most absolutely do. Because without a sense of humor, I get really pissed off at the abject stupidity and ignorance that dominates this hobby. How's that? Do you get that? So I don't do that, you see. I don't do that. I smile and I'm friendly and I'm helpful and I'm supportive and I'm caring and I try really hard to be so. And when somebody gets under my skin, I try to sit back and rise above it enough to be able to deal with it in a rational way and not in an emotional outburst as I just did by way of demonstration, you see. How do I feel about going What is this? I lost it. About going. Yo, Sully, 1999 pounds. Whoa. Where is that? Got to get back to it. Is that it? Yes. Thank you, Yo, Sully. Appreciate you. Now, let me find. Site sources are finding a way to test things. That's right. That's right. Exactly. Have to listen to thunder. Well, there is that, isn't there? Let's see. Krauss, it would be hypocritical of me to condemn live feeding fish and not other animals. But my personal preference is to just not use fish for live feeding. 100% emotional. I just don't like seeing it. And I'm with you, Krauss. I mean, I I understand exactly where you're coming from. I've done plenty of it. I really don't do it anymore. I feed bugs. Um, but I really, unless I had an arowana, I probably would feed an arowana small fish because that's about all they would eat. Martel McCoy, give you a wrench. It takes me, what, about 15 seconds to do the wrench. Who is Kev? What's his channel called? Don't blindly trust source either. Some sources self reference. That's right. That's right. Gullyman. Gullyman. Featherfish is truthful with some of the things he says, as long as his fish is happy and healthy. Well, I tell you what, if my fish is sick, I'm going to want to figure out why. I'm not going to just flush it. If I'm doing something wrong, I want to know what I'm doing wrong so I can fix it. Let's see. Deborah. Love you, Papa. Love you, Deborah. That is moderator. What numbers are we up to? Are we still at like one? We were at 140, weren't we? 140 still, yeah. Here's good question. David Anati says, why is this natural method of keeping fish so hard to grasp? What lake out there had pink and blue fluorescent gravel and fake plants? Really good question. And I think the answer is really quite simple. I think the answer is that in our attempt to create a plastic society, a plastic culture, and synthetic culture, we have tried to divorce ourselves from nature and from the natural systems. And so we have been taught to distrust nature and to trust our science as though what we can create is of greater value than what nature can offer us. And I guess the very best example of that is synthetic meat. Now, granted, synthetic meat is made from organics, so it's really a composite material of edibles. Nevertheless, in principle, it is saying that that which we can create is superior to that which is created for us. Now, do you begin to understand? We are establishing ourselves in a Tower of Babel, treating ourselves as though we are gods. How many religious leaders have you heard say, we are gods? But of course, we're not. We are creatures. And we are creatures that have no permanent existence at all. We have soul, which is that in us, which is the creator's essence. We have that, but it is not this creature scurrying about on the earth. That's here one day and gone the next. That which energizes it, which gives it consciousness and aspires it to divinity, is itself the divinity touching us, making of us something to which we can aspire. But to think that somehow this mortal shell, this body that we inhabit, can somehow be made permanent is utter foolishness. It is dust. We're made of dust, the very dust that is the earth. We are dirt, and we will return to dirt. And the divinity, whatever it is of us that is divine, will return to the divine whose essence it is. I do believe that the Creator loves His creation and loves each individual in His creation, and clearly has created us, at least on this planet, on this earth, to be majestic, to be above all. Yet, if we take that to mean that we create this earth or any aspect of it, we're denying our true existence. And we need not do that. I think to the extent that we do that, we deny nature and deny the natural method of keeping fish. It's really that simple. This is a spiritual test, you see. I'm tricky that way. This is a spiritual test. And there are those who pass the test and go on to glory, the glory of a magnificent aquarium that thrives and throbs with life and gives back. Or they go on to the anxiety and the stress of trying to maintain something that 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 cannot by any human means be maintained. And we are out of time. Love you all. Let's see if there are any more donations there I need to acknowledge. Bill Sid has a flame. Less magic mushrooms for Father. Very good. Very good. Thank you, Lumpy Dog. Master Black. Well, well, well. Right. Didn't think about that, did you? Ha ha. Gotcha. Fat lure. You can't use a tank to keep fish If you're going to use natural methods, it makes no sense because fish aren't supposed to be in a tank in the first place if we want to keep these fish in. Just keep thinking, Fat Leeward. Keep thinking. Don't stop thinking. You'll get somewhere. Just keep working at it. I'll tell you what, come on over to Discord where we can come at you from all sides. That'll be great fun. You betcha, Myrtle. Yo, Sully, thank you so much. I don't know if he was talking about me. Yo, Sully, don't agree. I'm sorry. I think the right fish for the right plant. I love the only time I mentioned that was Anubias with, oh, it's Fat Lure talking about plastic plants. I see. Oh, I'm so delighted you came in, Fat Lord. I really am. We haven't had anybody to uh, uh, to try to break through to in a long time, and it looks like you're going to be a hard case. So that's great. Excited to have you. Delighted to have you. Please be as free and open as you care to be. Do not feel as though you're going to offend, although I don't sense that you care about being offensive, which is fine. Um, I won't either if you insist. All right. Love you all. Love is like falling off a leaf, or that was life. It is, isn't it? It is. Love you all. Um, we're going to try to have this video out tomorrow. It might be interesting on how fish feel. We'll post it Tuesday if we can make it work. We'll post it Tuesday. Alex, delighted to see you here. Philip, happy you came in. Um, I really want to do something with you, Alex. Let's see if we've never done that. We have never. You came onto some of my live streams years ago, but we've never we've never done a real co-op. Thanks for the laughs. You bet, YouTuber. To do. Melt been keeping since 2500 BC. Completely natural. There you go. There you go. A few videos on fish emotions and intelligence. I'll look some of that up. That'll be good background. Thank you all. God bless you all. Delighted to be here. Love you. Bye for now.